Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm back again. So I'm back with another video, and I want to share with you guys the best ways for how to remember Japanese vocabulary. And just a little background on me, I had a very hard time at first, learning Japanese vocabulary because, I would learn something and I would study it, right? I'd study a word. Let's say I wanted to study a certain word, and then maybe like a day or maybe like an hour later, I completely forget the word, and I'm just like, wow, I spent all that time studying and I didn't retain anything. So if any of you guys are having trouble retaining Japanese vocabulary, like maybe these tips, that I put together might help you guys out. So let's get right into it here. So how to remember Japanese vocabulary. This is taken from my website here. I also made a blog post here. I'll also leave a link in the description. But basically, the first tip that I want to talk about here is what I use that personally has helped me a lot. Was the first tip is stop and jot. So what I mean by that is, what I used to do whenever I come across a new word, like whenever I would, when I was talking to my friend, or when I was, speaking to a Japanese friend, or even texting online, anything like that. If there was ever a word that I didn't understand, I would immediately just take out my phone and I just be like, hey, what is that word? I would just be like, hey, and I just look it up. Like I know, like in conversations and stuff like that, when I was speaking with my Japanese speaking friends, I used to do this kind of a lot. I would just like, they just say something and I just be like, wait. I'd be like, wait a second, and I just take out my phone, and they always laugh, because I always take out my phone whenever I hear a new word. But see, that was the habit that I had, and this habit is what's going to help you, because you'll not only are you going to get a bunch of words, but then you'll be able to have all those words in your phone so that you'll be able to look at it later. So what I would do is I would take the notes, take out my phone, write down what that word is, and I would make a mental note that I would study it later on. And this is after I finished hanging out with them, or after I finished, whatever I was doing. I create this. There was a big list, So when I was going home, I would take it out and I would try and learn those words, so that maybe the next time I go out and speak Japanese, I'd be able to use it. So the key here is you have to create that list. So what for me, I just stopped and jot. That was the thing. That's, to put it simply, I stopped and jot, and it really has helped me a lot to retain thousands of words, so many words doing this method. And don't worry, guys, if you guys don't have Japanese speaking friends yet, that's okay. You guys can still do this. Even when you're coming across words online or in text while you're studying, you learn a new vocabulary. Whatever grammar book you're reading has a list of vocabulary words. You could use that, and you study those words, and you try your best to see if you can use it there, and you'll remember it. Now that brings me to my next tip, which is tip number 2, which is to have effective studying. Now, there's a certain type of way to study. It's different from, if you're studying for a test, or if you're studying for something similar, like in school. Like for school, everything is in your short-term memory. You're studying for something for a test, and once you finish taking the test, you don't really need to study it anymore, and you will eventually forget what you've studied. So that was the issue that I was having. I would study it and I'd be able to retain it for a short amount of time, but if I didn't use that word, or study it again, or see that word again, then I would eventually forget it. And that was the problem that I was having, is like, how am I going to be exposed to a certain word? Because I wasn't living in Japan. I was in America, and I didn't have much surroundings with Japanese. So the thing is, the goal is here that you want to put the words that you've learned, and you want it to go into your long-term memory. See, language, everything that you learn in Japanese is has to be in your long-term memory, because you'll be able to access it just like that. So I'm going to teach you right here what has helped me. Um, and it's something called spaced repetition. I don't know if you guys ever heard it before, but basically the idea that the more that you're exposed to a word over time, the easier it is for you to remember it in the long run. So instead of studying things one time, you're going to have like a different repetition of exposure to that word in a certain amount of time. Like maybe, for example, you study once, and then you test yourself maybe 10 minutes later. And if you still are able to do it, then you test yourself 1 hour later, then 1 day later, and then 1 week later, and then 1 month later. You see that you're increasing the time, and eventually by the time you probably get to like maybe the first month or so and you're still able to recall it, that's you already know that it's in your long-term memory. You're going to be able to recall that word whenever. So there's actually an application that is following these principles here, and I recommend it's very highly recommended because it has helped me put words into my long-term memory, and it's called Anki. Anki intelligent flashcards is pretty much the principle is spaced repetition, and it's different from normal flashcards because it uses that spaced repetition, and it's really awesome, and it's free to download, so anyone that has a computer can download it and start using it right away. It's also for Android. It's free on Android, but the thing is, it does cost money on the iPhone. I believe it's like $25, which is kind of weird. I'm not sure why, but only for the iOS it does cost money. But for the computer, it's free, so you guys are free to download that and start using it, and you guys will start memorizing words like this. The way that it's set up, it's using spaced repetition. So definitely recommend it. Try it out and watch yourself. You will definitely learn some new words fast, and that will help you a lot. Moving on here. The tip number 3 is to try to remember phrases or short sentences too. So it's not just about remembering a certain word. It would also be super, super beneficial if you can memorize like a short sentence of using that word. For example, let's say here, so the example I put here was iku. Iku means to go, and you can create a short sentence like I am going to school. I will go to school. 学校 is school. 学校に行きます. So 学校に行きます means I will go to school. And see, I use the particle if you guys can see here, the particle に行きます. So 学校に行きます means I will go to school. So if you guys haven't learned the に particle, it's basically the directional particle, which is kind of like to. So I will go to school. So 学校に行きます. So if you can remember, say like a short sentence like this, 学校に行きます, then you would be able to know that when you use that verb 行く, that the particle に it goes along with this word. So there's many words that go along with certain particles, and this is just something that has personally helped me with Japanese. Is if you can remember a short sentence, then you can literally create any type of sentence. So you're saying, oh, I'm going to school. Instead, you can go like to the mall, shopping mall ni ikimasu, or you can go to college, 大学に行きます, or you can go to the gas station. You can use it for anything. And so that was the awesome thing about memorizing like a short sentence, is you can use that word and phrase or create short sentences on your own really quickly, because you already know that iku is associated with the particle ni or e. So there's other particles as well that you could use. And so this has helped me a lot. And maybe you guys can try this out and see if you guys can create more sentences effectively. Let's move on to the next tip here, is word association technique. And this is a technique that I've learned that has helped me a lot personally, because when you're trying to remember a word, right? So you're trying to remember like a Japanese word, and you're trying to remember that Japanese word means something in English, right? So it's kind of hard because those two words are so completely different. And this technique it doesn't even have to be with just language. It could literally be in like your studies and anything that you're trying to learn. But when you create an association between these two unrelated words, then it'll be like 10 times easier to remember it. So the example that I have here is tomodachi. So tomodachi means friends, or tomodachi means friend. So how would you remember tomodachi it means friend is you create an association, you create a picture in your mind. So for me, when I think of tomodachi, it starts with T-O-M, right? Tom. So I think of my friend Tom, and dachi, I was like, okay, what does dachi sound like? It sounds like Dutch. So I would think of my friend named Tom speaking in Dutch, and I would create this mini like picture in my mind of this person named Tom speaking in Dutch, and that's my friend. So I would think of my friend named Tom speaking in Dutch to remember that tomodachi means friend. And you can use this association with anything. And I found that when you can create a picture in your mind, for me, I'm a visual learner, so I'm not sure, like there might be other ways, maybe audio might be your best, but I've personally found that if you can associate words with words that you already know, so even like tomodachi, like I've associated with other English words that I know, right? What does tomodachi sound like? Tomodachi sounds like my friend Tom, or that speaks Dutch. And if you guys don't know anyone named Tom, then just think of a famous celebrity named Tom, like Tom Hanks, right? So Tom Hanks is speaking in Dutch, and it's kind of like a funny, picture in my mind. And so whenever I think of tomodachi, I'll think of that, and I'll instantly know, just like that, from the association, that tomodachi means friend. And see, that's the technique right there. That's a technique that has helped me a lot personally. And another example I can give is like takusan. Takusan. Takusan means like a lot or many. So the way that I remember takusan is I would think taku-san. I would think of my friend named Taku, right? Because the thing is, I have a friend named Taku, and Taku-san, so I could just call him Taku-san. So I can just imagine. Taku-san means a lot, right? I can just imagine a bunch of takus. I just imagine like taku, 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 taku. I could just imagine so many duplicated copies of taku that I would know when I think of the word taksan, I'll think of so many different takus, which indicates that it means that there is a lot. So if I was to try to memorize that word, I would use that association technique. And the thing is, for me, you could use this association with anything, right? Whatever the word sounds like. But for me, I found that like I usually use like a person, like whatever, I don't know, for some reason that's what my brain always thinks about, is like some sort of person named Taku. Or see, the thing is, you could be creative with it, as creative as you are, because when you create that mental picture in your mind, then it just becomes 10 times easier to remember a word. And that's the technique I use. You guys can try that out, see if it works for you. Let me know what you guys think of it. And okay, so tip number 5 here is you gotta look for opportunities to use the word in a sentence, because when you can actually use that word, let's say for example you studied it one day, right? And the next day there was an opportunity for you to use that word, and you used it. And right there, when you use that word, it got exposed to that word again. And so it'll be that much easier to have that word be ingrained into your long-term memory. So the key here is you have to look for opportunities to use it. It's not just about studying the word and knowing the word. It's about using the word. When you use it, it becomes 10 times easier to remember. So that's something to look out for. And sometimes, in the beginning of your journey, it's going to be fairly easy to look for an opportunity to use a word. If you guys don't have anyone to practice with, then I recommend just practicing with yourself out loud. And when you practice out loud, you're also, creating that association and creating that exposure yourself. So in any given situation, if you're looking for an opportunity, the opportunity will present itself. But if you're not looking for the opportunity to use the word, then chances are you won't be able to, remember it, or chances are that you won't see the opportunities when they come. So when you're actively looking for an opportunity, then that opportunity will come to you. So try it out. It definitely helped me a lot in learning all kinds of vocabulary because I just create sentences and just look for an opportunity to use it in a sentence. And so another application that I use that helps me practice sentences is High Native. And this is right here is an app right here. I got it here. You can download it for free. You can get it on like your iPhone or on Android, and it's basically a question and answer app. You know, you ask questions like, "Oh, does this sound right or does this sound wrong?" This platform is used on different languages. Look at all these languages. It's all translated into different languages, so different people from different languages also use this app, and they ask questions in English, and you'd be able to answer them. And so in Japanese, you'd be able to connect with native Japanese speakers and you'd be able to ask them questions and they would be able to answer the questions for you. So I found this to be extremely helpful with my language learning. Try it out and promise you guys will definitely learn from it. Moving on to the tip number 6, what I used to do, this is just a habit that I used to do, is I learned that when you study words before you go to bed, you actually have a higher chance of retaining it. And there's some scientific studies that actually back this up. But I found personally that it's actually helped me. So what I would do is before bed, I would just look over the list of words that I'm studying. Maybe do some studying while before I go to bed, and before I go to sleep, I'm just gonna think about it a little bit, because I studied all those words, and the next day I can look at it again, and I will be able to remember what each word means, and I have that association, and I'd be able to do it. So try it out, guys. All these tips definitely help me to retain. So the key is to retain it to your long-term memory, right? And these tips have helped me a lot. So you guys can try it out, and you guys can tell me what you guys think. And hopefully this brings value to you guys. And that's all I care about is, I really want to help other people learn and get better. And that's the goal here. So, hey guys, if you guys like the video, you guys hit a like and subscribe. Appreciate that. Or just hit a comment on the website. Hey, I appreciate that too. Thank you guys so much and take care.